Nigeria's finest. Born 59 years ago, that's the man in white. He is the Executive Vice Chairman, Ibadan School of Government and Public Policy, Professor of Public Administration, Lead University, Ibadan. Was born in Awe, Afigio, local government area of Oyo State. A University of Ibadan trained political scientist. Olaokpa holds a doctorate degree in public administration. He joined the Federal Civil Service in 1988 as a speechwriter and chief researcher in the office of the president, Aso Villa. What a career to start from the president's office. As a career bureaucrat, Olaokpa served the federal government in various capacities, including being coordinator, education sector analysis, and head policy division in the Federal Ministry of Education, and deputy director and head technical secretariat reform strategy team of the presidency. He served as permanent secretary in 5 ministries, namely the Career Management Office, the State House, Labor and Productivity, Youth Development, and Communication Technology, during which time he contributed to fashioning of key.
We are reaching you live from the NTA Hotels here.
The conception of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, amongst others. He is a seasoned researcher, trainer, and prolific writer. Professor Olaokpa has authored a dozen major books, 30 monographs, and 1 co-authored book, 20 articles in peer-reviewed journals, and several essays, chapters, and articles in conference proceedings. If I continue.
Hello. 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 Morning. A warm welcome to the heartbeat of the nation. We are reaching you live from the Randeki Royal Hotels here in Benin City, the land of tradition and custom. The event here today is to honor the values of a man described as an administrator par excellence, a stickler for time, and a disciplinarian. I'm talking about the first Secretary to Government and Head of Service of the Midwest region, that is the late Chief Joseph Imoukhuede, who died in 1989. I am Agatha Egwarojo, and with my colleague Obeo Toba Presai, will take you through this program. Again, you're welcome. Thank you, Agatha. It is worthy to note that Pa Imoukhuede was the first non-indigene to serve as a permanent secretary in the Western region, so appointed by the primate Samuel Akintola in 1960, purely on merit. We are expecting some distinguished Nigerians here today. A lecture titled The Man Chief Joseph Imoukhuede, the Quintessential Administrator, Revisiting Our History of Selfless Public Service, is being delivered by the Executive Vice Chairman, Ibadan School of Government and Public Policy, Professor Tunji Olaokpa, who will expatiate on the values that guided the life of the late Chief Imoukhuede.
Their Excellencies, and their representative of the executive governors here present. I noticed in the audience the icon of culture in Nigeria, Chief Frank Imoukhuede. Who I'm aware, if I'm not wrong, is father to my very close friend, Aigboje Imoukhuede. The head of service of Edo State and the rep, my colleague, representative of the governor, my senior brother, Ode Ayofem, the past personal secretary to the late sage, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, former head of service, Dr. Sonny Opaisi, my dear colleague, and now one of the newest eldest men around, Dr. Waheed Olagunju, the celebrated Bank of Industry Chief Check. Please, just allow me. I remember this young lady, the national mechanic or something? Lady mechanic, I remember I hosted her in the villa. I appreciate that I am speaking to a very rich audience. Indeed, the creme de la creme of Nigeria's intelligentsia. Policy experts, corporate chieftains, academics, researchers, and development workers. So I do not take this audience for granted. I salute my Lord temporal and spiritual and gentlemen of the press. I like to say that this is an extraordinary occasion. It is one occasion that holds, for me, deep emotional, administrative, and intellectual values. Emotional because I feel honored as a scholar, practitioner, expert bureaucrat to have been considered the right guest lecturer to bring alive the memories of the life and times of our departed public hero. Indeed, I fully understand the value of administrative professionalism and those who, since the beginning of Nigeria, have stood for the best that the public service could offer. As a young officer in the federal civil service, and like the Jews, while in exile in Babylon, some of us nursed a deep nostalgia for a return of the golden era of the civil service of the 60s in Nigeria. The immense historical figure we are celebrating today is not just one of the founding fathers of Nigeria and a pioneer public servant. He was one of those who have transformed our understanding of how the public service has fared since independence. Intellectually, I'm grateful for this opportunity as it enables me to further push my insistence that with responsible leadership and constitutional order, the public service and the entire administrative institutions in Nigeria holds the key to national transformation. I'd like to appreciate the entire Imoukhuede clan and the organizers of this lecture. The passion and the incredible vision behind this event was aptly demonstrated by Mr. Folabi Imoukhuede during our many telephone conversations and when he visited me in Ibadan. I was touched, and I pray that the good Lord will raise for us children like this. Amen. Children who put value by legacy. In Yoruba we say, "Ọmọ rere á gbẹ̀yìn àwa náà." I have two significant things to say to this illustrious family. First, I need to sincerely celebrate the courage that led to putting this annual memorial lecture in place. I do not know why it is coming at this period of the 30th memorial anniversary of Chief Imoukhuede. The important thing is that the decision has been made, and it is a very momentous one. Which brings me to the second point. Memorial lectures, especially around very significant historical figures like Pa Imoukhuede speaks to the role that legacies play in national history, national development, and in the rise and fall of civilizations. Nigeria is blessed with enormous legacy capital that indeed are sufficient to enable us to transform our national development process. This is what makes this memorial lecture a significant projection from the Imoukhuede's family. I salute this foresight. At the end of this lecture, I hope to have demonstrated why the trajectory of public service of Pa Imoukhuede served as a legacy challenge to the Nigerian state that he strove to advance during his lifetime. I shall present the substantive part of this lecture in 5 parts. In the first, I will attempt to track Papa Imoukhuede's career as a civil servant in the historical trajectory of public administration in Nigeria. First, his career in the Federal Civil Service, actually in the Colonial Central Office, and his years after 1963 in the service of the Midwestern region, and of course his services in the post-Civil War years. In the second part, I shall highlight the reason that Pa Imoukhuede's generation of bureaucrats were distinguished and why they will always be celebrated. In the third part, I will cast a searchlight on the current state of the civil service. In the fourth, I will present a few recommendations on how the current crisis-ridden civil service can be reformed to perform better. In the fifth, I will conclude on 2 parts. I will pay a tribute to Papa by simply stating the significance of his global award as the officer of the British Empire. Then I will advance 5 reflective points which I have specifically designed to enable the panel to interrogate the major substance of this paper, tracking Pa Imoukhuede's career. The Nigerian civil service came into existence in 1954 with the coming of the Littleton Constitution under the administrative tutelage of the British colonial administrative tradition. The transition from the colonial service, in retrospect, look as though it was seamless, but it was not without some hiccups. But the transition was managed with high-end professionalism nonetheless, because there were a core of pioneer civil servants who were schooled in the value-based administrative tradition instituted by the British, and who were eager to lay the foundation of a prestigious profession that was world-class. These pioneers, the Imoukhuedes, belonged to a Nigerian society of the time that had its time-honored value foundation intact. This was an era when people attained positions of responsibility that were earned by dint of learning achievement, distinct professionalism, a deep sense of self-worth, underpinned by honor, exemplary conduct, and the noblest of character. Pa Imoukhuede's public service career was fashioned within those fundamental parameters around which the Nigerian public service system was established. Consequently, alongside the others who constituted his seniors and colleagues, Simeon Adebo, Jerome Udoji, Sule Katagun, Samuel Manua, and many others, Joseph Imoukhuede came to his own as a significant administrator, one of the most solid of the products of the famous and world-renowned British administrative tradition, dating from the North Court-Rebellion 1854 establishment, as well as the Macaulay Report of the same year, 1854, in Britain. John Imoukhuede joined the civil service in 1938 from the lowest of the level available to colonize Nigeria. Third class clerk. However, through dint of hard work and utter dedication, he rose through the ranks until he became first a chief clerk and then later became an executive officer. Mere narration of the progression of his promotion will not reveal the enthusiasm and the extreme dedication that will allow the colonial administrators of the time to waive the rule which insisted on colonial administrative logic that positions of executive officer and higher executive officer, AGO, must always be occupied by British officers. It will appear that the young Imoukhuede forced the hand of the colonial administrators through the persistence of hard work and professional diligence that distinguished him as the right person for the position. It was this work ethic and promise that gave further impetus to his desire to advance his career in spite of the structural and cultural limitations. By 1939, Imoukhuede was awarded an undergraduate scholarship, which he was only able to pick up at the end of the Second World War, 1945. At the completion of his bachelor's degree in history in 1949, he got another award to pursue a master's program that he completed in 1959. All this was ongoing side by side with progressive learning and promotion in administrative responsibility. He followed Chief Simeon Adebo in time to attend the one-year Devonshire Overseas Service course in 1949. Adebo had been in that course in 1948. In 1950, when the Nigerian civil service was just some 4 years to his inauguration, Joseph Imoukhuede had just returned to Nigeria. This return was in the wings of major historic nationalist movement propelled wave that brought back many African founding fathers, from Kwame Nkrumah and Obafemi Awolowo to Nnamdi Azikiwe, Julius Nyerere, as well as many scholars and intellectuals who procured Western education but felt the need to return home for a more urgent assignment than the immediate satisfaction of making ends meet. Imoukhuede in the Federal Civil Service. The ebullient and enthusiastic Joseph Imoukhuede knew what he was coming to. Like Adebo and Udoji before him, Imoukhuede only used his knowledge of history, his BA degree, as a launching pad to deeper administrative service. Adebo studied English. Udoji was a trained lawyer. However, unlike Chief Adebo and Chief Udoji, Imoukhuede did not stumble into the public service by chance. It was as if Providence propelled him all along, from secondary school education straight to the Federal Civil Service. It was to this Federal Civil Service that he returned in 1950, fresh from series of studies and trainings in the best that the British administrative tradition could offer a young, energetic, foresighted, and professionally minded Nigerian who saw beyond all the trainings to the days when his administrative knowledge and perspicacity would become the difference between statehood and nationhood in Nigeria. However, he had no idea whatsoever how his administrative career would unfold. It was just certain that he would work for Nigeria and advance our post-independence fortune with all he had learned. He had acquired the administrative acumen and professionalism that Nigeria would require at a significant moment in his national evolution. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, but he was not to know the path that Providence would direct his professionalism and dedication in the service of Nigeria. He spent only 5 years in the Federal Civil Service. In 1955, he was to receive a letter personally signed by Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and possibly on the recommendation of Chief Simeon Adebo, which was an invitation that was too administratively juicy for him to reject. He accepted the invitation to transfer his service to the emerging Western Region Civil Service, and it was there that his administrative reputation began to unravel and to flourish. The unforgettable years. Whoever has read Adebo's memoir will know that's the title, Imoukhuede in the Western Region. Like Adebo, Imoukhuede went through a rigorous tutelage in the colonial bureaucracy that immersed him in the codes, rules, precedents, and discipline that was to serve him when the good government of Western Region beckoned. When he arrived at the Western Region, it was therefore not difficult for him to accept the unspoken slogan of the Awolowo-led action group, quote and unquote, work more abundant, in order to generate life more abundant. On arrival, Chief Adebo, in his 1983 memoir titled The Unforgettable Years, remarked that they met in region with well thought out policy papers for practically all field of government activity or sectors, prepared by Chief Obafemi Awolowo and his think tank. The development agenda already made possible a comprehensive and coherent policy framework that facilitated a unique and effective template of government, civil service rapport, and facilitated high performance. Within an ideologically sound and knowledge-propensed governance environment, therefore, the civil service was able to achieve a spectacular administrative glory for the Western Region, because the service had the likes of Imoukhuede, who understood implicitly that what public service meant, and who gave themselves unstintingly without asking for immediate gratification. Imoukhuede commenced his administrative contribution in the Western Region with a 2-year initial responsibility, first as the Agent General of the Western Region in the United Kingdom in 1956. His responsibility was not only to see to the interests of the Western Region, but more to ensure that the interests of the citizens of the region were protected. From 1958 to 1963, he served in several administrative posts that were very critical to outlining Awolowo's policy dynamics and the mini revolution that we witnessed in the Western region. From an initial post as principal administrative secretary attached to the Premier's office, he went on to become the first and the only non-Yoruba to be appointed in the Western region as a permanent secretary. This was at a momentous time in national political history, with such active members of the action group like Chief Antonio Nahoro, Chief Arthur Prest, and Chief G.C. Noyelo, and many others. A period when politics was deeply ideological, and there was a sincere attempt to raise the quality of lives of Nigerians, no matter the region they find themselves. Joseph Imoukhuede then, in rapid succession, did some significant stints in functional ministries like agriculture, lands and housing, and of course, the treasury, the Ministry of Finance. In 1963, when the Midwest region was created, all public servants from the newly created region were asked to disengage from the Western Region Civil Service and to report to Joseph Imoukhuede in Benin City. And thus, after close to 25 years as a master public servant, Joseph Imoukhuede was to be confronted with the biggest administrative challenge of his career, establishing the civil service system of a new region, the Midwest region, with little or no capital, virtual lack of infrastructure and expertise. Unlike his administrative apprenticeship and record in Western region, where politics and administration took their accustomed sphere, in the Midwest region, Imoukhuede was to face the hostility of a political leadership which breached politics and administration dichotomy and inserted itself into the efficient performance credentials of the region. The NCNC-led government of Chief Dennis Osadebe refused to confirm Chief Imoukhuede as the head of service of the Midwest region. Indeed, the government went ahead to remove and replace him with a politically correct alternative. It was 3 years later, in 1966, and with the intervention of the military, that Joseph Imoukhuede returned to his administrative responsibility. This was unfortunately further truncated by the onset of the Nigerian Civil War, which led to his capture by the Biafran soldiers for 2.5 years. This is how much I can capture in biographical terms. Why was the era of the Imoukhuedes distinguished? And why must they be celebrated? They were selfless. They took public service like religion, as a calling to serve a higher power and purpose. Okay. From Adebo to Imoukhuede, these administrators came into public service and gave of their being. They believed that they had a noble and godly responsibility to serve God through serving the public with their administrative endowment. This dimension I conceptualized in my numerous research publications as spirituality of service. For me, the first principle underlying spirituality is a deep sense of responsibility to a higher power. Spirituality here derives from a deep relationship with God, or some irreducible principle, if you will, that goes beyond the acceptable circumference of organized religion. One immediate implication of this spirituality is that it necessarily gave birth to what I have called the value of deferred gratification. The value of deferred gratification. This is the kingdom message of Christ on Mount Olivet. This is what in theology is called the Levitical order for priesthood in the book of Leviticus in the Bible. What does it mean? It is to render undiluted service to humanity without looking for reward from a man, but with eternity in focus, with eternal reward as payoff. This is a moral framework that's ensured that the public servants place their immediate basic needs below the urgency of serving the public and the nation. Joseph Imoukhuede, according to a junior colleague of his, Dr. Antonio Paisi, one-time head of service of Edo State, was very punctual, always impeccably dressed, and fluent in Queen's English. He was forthright and much disciplined, was highly reasonable in the sense that he would bow to superior argument on any matter, and was a highly social person, even though he would never discuss government business outside of the office. Meritocracy for the Imoukhuede generation of public servants was sacrosanct. Even with the then subsisting quota system guiding policy in diversity management, which we now call federal character, meritocracy was sacrosanct and inviolable for that generation of bureaucrats. Meritocracy was therefore the key factor in recruitment, in training, in appointment and posting. Staffing was according to the dictates of technical qualification, with judicial doses of mentoring, coaching, and the benefit of increasing professional experience through posting and assignment. Town and gown synergy. In spite of the competency-based human resource management policy of the time, the administrative leadership did not take for granted the capacity gap created by the exit of the British expatriates after independence. They were willing to invest heavily in capacity building to make the civil service ready for all times. Performance and productivities were enhanced because this generation had a seminar spirit that permitted cross-fertilization of ideas with experts, whatever the sectors they are located, be it academics, industry, consultancy, or civil society. This open-mindedness and seminar orientation, unfortunately, is missing in the civil service today. What we have is a needless anti-intellectualism in the policy space, where anything that is rigorous and research-based is considered theoretical. Unfortunately, the academics are not better. The academy had a resentment for civil servants. They believe they know nothing. They believe they were not the very best for the classes. So they publish in highfalutin language that makes their contribution worthless sometimes. So this open-minded and seminar orientation was enhanced with a turn and gown multidisciplinary relationship that motivated research, industry, and policy synergy. Mutual respect between political and administrative leadership. The endeavors and Imoukhuede enjoyed a collaborative partnership between the political leadership of Chief Awolowo and the administrative leadership that was rooted in mutual respect, absolute deference to the governance code established by the Constitution and the General Order, GO. At the time, the politicians initiate the policy, the bureaucrat advise, and unreservedly implement them. It never happened that it was when a government had been elected to power that it started to think of how to put together its blueprint. It never happened in Nigeria in the 60s. I recall when I started my research into public administration, the first person I visited was Chief Adebo in Abuja. He gave me his experience in the Western region as soon as he resumed. He said the parties were campaigning, and he put together his permanent secretary and the expert in the civil service. They took the manifesto of all the parties, researched it. Immediately Chief Awolowo won. He invited Chief Simadebo to come with his colleagues. And when he got to the office, he said, Simeon Adebo, this is our agenda. I want you to go and study it. And Chief Simadebo said, can you give me like 1 hour to give the civil servant perspective to your policy? He said, what? I've not given you before. He said, don't worry, sir. He went, broke down their manifesto, all the policy projections, the implementation strategy, and even the positioning of his permanent secretary and directors who will implement them. And Chief Obafemi Awolowo said, wow, then let's begin to implement. But today, not only would the politicians not even allow the civil service to think, I ran a retreat for the head of services of Southwest, and I was propounding ideas, best practices, So during the coffee break, this head of services said, Professor Lapa, can we just have a short meeting? And one of the head of services said to me, he said, Professor Lapa, I'm sure you didn't go through this federal service. That one day, we thought the governor did not know what he was doing. And we thought to guide him. So I called the experts among my permanent secretary, some of the DGs. We then said, let's put us together and put a policy brief to guide. He said they have not met for 2 hours when she was summoned by the governor. And the governor said, I heard you are meeting to overthrow my government. He said, no, sir, we just thought that we could make input to help you succeed. He said, anything I don't ask you to do, you have no right to do it. That's what we find. We have virtual emperors in the state. I'm happy I didn't make my career in the state, because I wonder what would have been my experience. The federal may not be too much of an outlier, but as a permanent secretary, in the 5 ministry I headed, I was in charge. When I was in the State House, when President Jonathan called me and said, I heard the rumor you are doing this. I said, thank you, sir. Can I go back to my office and give you a report of what I have done? I'm not sure any state PAMSEC or head of service will do that. We need a change. We need good governance. Policy blueprints were done through a dynamics moderated by the leadership of the party to reflect its philosophy, and with the guidance of think tanks and experts provided by technical support anywhere. Chief Adebo said they were having a conversation. Professor Mabogunje sat, Awokoya sat, Aboyade sat, and Aluko, and many of them. And they said, we have not thought of this before. Indeed, the only place that it has been implemented was in India. He said they contacted Chief Obafemi Awolowo and said there is one professor at Louis, who later won a Nobel in economics. Chief Awolowo said, how much will it cost to bring him? And within 7 days, Ato Louis came to consult for Western region. That was the Nigeria that we are talking about. And I dare say this, I'm not like White. I'm now a mini elder statesman, so I can talk. What we are having in policy today is virtual recycling of ignorance. So in case there are gaps and observed incoherence in the policy framework set out by the government, there was significant portfolio advice provided by the top civil servant working in concert with experts. This advice is, however, rendered always with deep level of sincerity, patriotism, and professionalism. Chief Adebo said, we could say anything. And I wish, I'm sure Chief Frank Imoukhuede would have belonged to the days of the super permanent secretary. Any civil servant that does not know his boundary will cross into the political sphere and he will be crushed. The super permanent secretary became very close to Gowon. They were very bright, top of their class. I recall Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Again, that's another story. This man, this masquerade that sits here, was personal secretary to Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and I was doing my doctorate at the University of Ibadan. They just interviewed me. For almost 1 week, we were doing interviews. I said, do you want to replace Angel Gabriel in heaven? Why are we doing all these rigorous things? Later, I understand that the interview was to replace Odia Ofem as personal secretary to Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and I was, appointed. So the Chief Awolowo said he was too ready. So what happened when he was deputy chairman of the cabinet of Gowon? And the lot was that they were struggling with his permanent secretary. Minister will present, the parcel will counter him. So Awolowo was not used to that. But the breaking point was when Muritala, T.Y. Danjuma, Obasanjo returned from the Civil War. When you win a war, you are powerful. You are the power broker. And they discovered they couldn't even reach Gowon without going through the super permanent secretary. They waited. They did the coup of 1970. Was it 76? 75. They got rid of Gowon, and the first thing they did was to eliminate all the permanent secretary. It's unfortunate that happened. But I'm sure if it were to be the neighbors that were there, that would not have happened, because you would have had to live with it. Again, I had the chance to sit with Chief Asiodu, Mr. Aida, many times in the course of my research, and they explained that the military really didn't know what to do. And they needed to guide them step by step. That they may have overstepped by power, but it was because of the imperative of the Civil War. And sincerely, for me, they remain hero for that. Motivation and condition of service were administered to preserve the prestige and professionalism of the service. Service was so attractive and competitive that government was the first choice employer of labor, even above the private sector, especially given the security of tenure that the public officers enjoy. With a developmental industrial relation, there was never a breach of industrial harmony like we witness today, where the labor union would disregard the judgment of the Nigerian National Industrial Court. And they would disregard the basic principle of collective bargaining. So there was rule of law in their days. Workforce size was determined through scientific management of the growth of the public service with deference to organizational method best practices. So what is the state of the public service today, and what is the way forward? The capacity of public institutions to generate exceptional returns at the level of performance as demonstrated in the golden days of the Imoukhuede's governance model is dependent on several factors. 3 are particularly significant. 1, the kind of politics that a nation plays and the type of institutions that emerge in the quadrum of that game. The decision-making and service delivery quotient or capability deployed by the political and bureaucratic leadership on their problem-solving responsibility, as well as the concession they make to get the public service at its engine to be capability ready to enable seamless move from vision to execution and to outcome. 3, government's capacity to attract, retain, and develop the right workforce. So the problem that is Nigeria is fundamentally, and I'm talking at the political level now, the problem that is Nigeria is fundamentally a lack of sufficient leadership sophistication and political will to create a viable political climate for shared understanding among the people, the diverse people of Nigeria, on the goals of society. And consequently, the failure to get the disparate society to submerge their local loyalty into feeling and loyalty and support for Nigeria as a larger unit. Consequently, the sense of Nigerianness, in terms of which the Nigerian identity can be defined, is weak and tenuous. What is other Turenchi? That's the professorial. But what I'm saying in essence is, this is a nation where, I'll give you one instance. There was this scholar in ABU who was known to be a great Marxist. I'm not going to mention name. I was advisor to the Minister of Education, and that was in 1999. So there are some changes that we need to get to happen. But I knew that some of those changes as a policy advisor to my minister might be misconstrued, especially by the northern part of Nigeria. So I constituted a panel headed by that radical from ABU. So we sat. I believe that, having read his literature, everything that he represented, his sense of one Nigeria and all, that he was detribalized and cosmopolitan. So I sat in the first 2 meetings with the committee, the panel. I discovered that this man was just defending the North. I said, Prof, come now. What we want to do is to, he said, my friend, I'm radical and patriotic as long as the North is not concerned. And that's the problem of Nigeria. Nobody thinks Nigeria. Everybody thinks their ethnic group. And until, and how do I describe it in my literature and my publication? I said, we have why is Nigeria not getting to promised land? I likened it to an aircraft with 3 pilots. One of the pilots is so determined to get to destination. The other is planning that he should crash so that one of the crash parts will go to his people. The third one want the plane to go and land in Saudi Arabia so that his ideology can be implanted. So we have discordant vision. We are for how many years unable to come to one understanding on why we are taking Nigeria. This explains leadership incapacity to build a capable and developmental state that can promote active citizenship. The kind of citizenship that encourages every Nigerian, irrespective of ethnic and religious persuasion, to walk beyond their personal interests in deliberation and in action. An orientation which alone is capable of making Nigerians to take their civic responsibility seriously. Indeed, the bane of public administration in Nigeria has to do with the failure of leadership to match rhetoric with action in developing and promoting an overriding national philosophy that can serve as touchstone for defining national goals and for developing a strong national consciousness, which will in turn drive the process of national integration. Indeed, and depressingly, the sort of country that Nigeria aspires to be has neither been clearly articulated in spirit and in truth, nor the Nigerian commitment of it to his own progress sufficiently demonstrated by its political leadership. The problem of lack of a firm direction contrived in the dubious behavior of the political class that repeats the same old game of playing needless game with the destiny of the Nigerian nation merely compounds the country's failure to build, develop, and nurture viable, capable, developmental and value-based institutions. Why the administrative dysfunction of the civil service holds so much to colonially inherited administrative system and structure, it is more to the national elite that we must look for their inability to deconstruct that colonial basis to make the bureaucracy sufficiently developmental. Deconstructing the administrative system therefore implies implementing a deep-seated cultural adjustment program that is rooted in national values reorientation of the people. The public managers and public institutions to rediscover what it means to be citizens in Nigeria, to be public servants, and what nation building entails, which is fundamental to creating a new generation of leaders, managers that will take Nigeria to its future. What are my proposals going forward? What are my recommendations? I'm trying to follow Afolabi. Also, I'm also a chief of the old bloc, so I want to keep strictly to my time. Beyond just strict technical and technocratic consideration, bringing back the Imoukhuede legacy in Nigerian public affairs requires a deep cultural change that will achieve two cogent reform objectives. One, a culture change that seeks to transform the attitude and behavior of the public servants through the insertion of a new administrative mentality circumscribed by the ideal of public spiritedness, spirituality of service, professionalism, and stewardship accountability to the public as their principle within the framework of a service compact. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an instance. I studied the Canadian civil service. In the Canadian civil service, again, technology and all, if you call a desk officer as a member of the public, by right, it's already legislated that you cannot call an officer and he will not be on his desk. So if I call you, the Canadian government has built the capacity for that call to be transferred to the next person acting for that person in almost 5 rounds. So if you call somebody on his desk for an inquiry, somebody must receive it. And there is a cycle time legislated by which the person must get his information. If you do not meet that citizen expectation, it will take you to court. And the department will pay him. So, in a situation like that, there's confidence between the public and the civil service. It's a seamless one. Now, putting in place a new human resource, that's the second one, my second recommendation. Putting in place a new human resource policy architecture with sufficient professional gatekeeping that is administered by HR core professionals, so the government status as employer of first choice is regained in order to attract those who are amply qualified to take over the public service with requisite competencies, skills, and entrepreneurial drive. The public service must upgrade into a profession that attracts the real public-spirited officers. And in my research, what I've discovered, my PhD was on the Nigerian civil service, with the federal service as case study. I used some psychology instrument in my interview. What did I find? I found 2 things. I found that the larger number of people in the federal civil service by orientation are contractors or politicians. It's not, you can't be a politician and be a civil servant. It's different. You can't be a contractor and be, if you're a contractor, go to the private sector. So, in global best practice, especially in Singapore, there is an instrument that they have developed that relies on technology that helps you, it's not, Lagos Business School does it. Personality typing. There is Meyer-Brick model. There are so many models you can use. If I take you through a test, I will tell you whether you are a public servant. So we must purge, we must begin to use that instrument in HR like assessment center, that when you go through it, everything about you is unraveled. To get to that level, we require not just the crafting of a strong public service reform strategy, which is, we have more than enough, but one matched with competently implemented change management strategy that is capable of infusing the service with new dynamics for its rediscovery and the transformation of institutional objectives as has been taken to height in Canada, Singapore, New Zealand, Botswana, and Mauritius. With public service institutional objective rediscovery, it would then be critical to undertake a fundamental rethinking of the intellectual operational base of skills set, especially of the managerial cadre, from being generalists to being serial masters. In the days of the Imoukhuede, they were generalists. You are experts in all things. We're in the knowledge and technology age, whereas you need multiple skill for multitasking, but there is a limit to the competency you can competently claim as a professional. So, you will have in-depth knowledge and competency in critical functional domains that are critical to your function. This will in turn require a workforce study to document existing skills in the public service that is benchmarked against the skills required by each MDA within a process involving job study and job evaluation to address the internal relative worth of existing jobs. This program will scientifically establish optimal staffing levels for all MDAs as basis for fundamental rationalization that include the unbundling of non-personnel expenditure heads of government as labor unions would demand. What am I saying? If you do a workforce study and you map the skill set in most MDAs in Nigeria, because most of the civil servants were recruited by one level of nepotism or the other. So there is skills discussion. And I've written in one of my recent articles that I did a little study with my doctorate, and I affirmed that over 30% of those in the federal civil service don't have the certificate that they claim. It is only in the civil service that you can masquerade and get away with it. I've had officers work with me who claim they had masters. And he will present memo to me and say, which school did you go to? My friend, before the God that you said, did you ever enter university? Because even as a clerk, I started as a clerk in NEPA. I could not write like that. So if you have a master's degree, you know what is called a master's degree? So they know me when I was permanent secretary. When they say they want to post people and they say, why is the permanent secretary? Don't post me there. I will send you back immediately. Because I will simply interact with you in a meeting. I will ask you to make input. And if you are incoherent, I know you are the one that bought your certificates in Ujuelegba. Send you away. Digital penetration and technology adoption in the public service. The rate of technology penetration in the public service as is will continue to widen digital divide between Nigeria and the rest of the world. There is therefore a need to speed up digital penetration and technology enhancement enhanced by social media visibility of government and a full embrace of open data policy. This process needs to go hand in hand with an elaborate attempt at deepening public-private partnership to enable public service delivery to be more rigorous in handling complexities in programs and projects through leveraging of innovative ideas from private sector and other non-state players. New national productivity model. In the final analysis, the public service cannot be sidelined from a general national productivity that must be founded on three fundamental administrative elements. Institutional rationalization. And for me, Onosai report for federal was just a baseline. It's not comprehensive. If I subject it to proper using instrument of job study, there will be more. But what I've said is this, and I support my friend Isa Aremu is my consultant in Ibadan School of Government. And we always discuss, we agree, we disagree. But one thing I found in the union's argument, you cannot now say it is only personnel cost that is making the cost of governance to go high. Go and look at other expenditure head. Unbundle everything. Put personnel, then we will agree for you to offload. But if we continue to have what the state, I was partly consulting for the governor of Oyo State, and I said there's nothing you can do here. Why? All the FAC allocation to him, they hand it over to a committee headed by unionists. They pay salary with it. So they really don't have resources to do anything tangible. We need to benchmark capital overhead and personnel cost. The nation needs a national waste reduction strategy that is linked to a new national maintenance policy and a new asset efficiency management scheme. I want to say to the family that because of my passion for public service, public administration, the Ibadan School of Government, as a partner in this, is offering its services in technical, in conceptualization, design of future, lectures. And other elements. I think there are some very cost-effective elements that can keep a measure of all the year-round small technical activity that would lead to the next lecture. And that may not cost you much. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what is the significance of the global award of Joseph Imoukhuede being officer of the British Empire? The unique point about Imoukhuede's credential is that he brought to professionalism a dignified spirituality of service that was a distinguishing feature of that generation of public servants. That noble trait is rooted, like I've said, in the spirit of deferred gratification, of undiluted service to humanity with eternal reward as payoff. Imoukhuede was therefore a role model, an exemplar in learning, character, and professionalism, with the officer of the British Empire Award as a recognition of distinguished public service record and unblemished noble character trait. Imoukhuede's officer of the British Empire Award therefore remains a testament to a global recognition of a professional exemplar par excellence. In signing off, I'd like to set the tone for panel discussion. Where do we go from here? I will raise several, just quick reflective points that will sharpen and bring home the historical and experiential insight derivable from Imoukhuede's legacy. One, I raised 5 questions, and I can hand these over to Odia. How can we undermine the politicization of public service through an operating dynamic originated by political caprices and authoritarian willfulness? What do I mean? The distinguishing feature that took the Imoukhuede's era out was integrity, public service value, and respect for governance code embodied in the general order and the constitution. This was represented by leadership by example of the like of Awolowo that ensured that the political and bureaucratic leadership held itself to the standard of personal and public accountability. This code of governance has been lost due to the unbridled intervention in bureaucratic integrity by extra bureaucratic consideration that undermines the integrity of the public. Question 2, how can the political leadership be encouraged to commit the much needed political will that is a defining factor in investing in the transformation of the public service? The reform of the public service is the first function of the political will of government to invest in the reform of that institution. Institutional reform often succeed or fail with the presence or absence of political commitment from the government. Such a political commitment becomes even more complicated given that public service reform often instigates intended and unintended consequences like industrial relation issue that could cripple government. most government would prefer not to rock the boat and commit to comprehensive reform. Yet, it is exactly this sense of shared mission that enabled the politicians and public health servants of the Imoukhuede period to thrive in exploring administrative publicity. Number 3, how do we ensure through an adequate diversity management and waste reduction that the Nigerian condition does not continue to undermine reform and restructuring possibilities? By the Nigerian condition, I'm referring to the fact that Nigeria is a plural state divided along religious, ethnic, cultural, and linguistic lines. The fact of our plurality was what led to the early nationalists to adopt the principle of representativeness in the Nigerianization policy. Number 4, how does a state like Nigeria manage the politics administration dichotomy to bring back the relationship between the likes of Awolowo, Adebo, Imoukhuede? 5, how do we reform the human resource function in ways that facilitate the emergence of new professionals enthusiastic to serve and not politicians and contractors in disguise? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for the indulgence to have spoken.
Thank you very much
Chief J.E. Imoukhuede.
for appreciating him. Please, let's be seated. You can imagine what the Nigerian civil service has lost in this amazing man. If there's a way to bring him back as extra super head of civil service, maybe that will be possible. One more time, let's put our hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. Let me quickly welcome His Excellency, the Acting Governor of Edo State, Right Honorable Philip Shuaibu, who is here with us. He didn't come alone. He's here with the Deputy Chief of Staff, Honorable Kingsley Ehigiamuso, who is here with us. We welcome you. Honorable Jimo Idiegbai, Commissioner for Local Government and Community Affairs, is also here. Honorable Amole, Commissioner for Infrastructure. And let me welcome the Exogwan of Benin Kingdom, Chief David Edebiri. But there's a special group of people here that I think the Imoukhuede family organized this for. What Professor Laokwa has done could sound like a State of the Nation address. But I think there is a target audience, and they're here. Let me welcome very specially all the young ones that are in the house, particularly students and lecturers and youths from the Adekunle Ajashi University Ondo State. They are here. Lead City University Ibadan, Oyo State. Federal Polytechnic Ibadan, Oyo State. Federal Government Empower Volunteers. Youths of Build the Future platform. Youths of the Nigerian Dream. And the National Youth Council of Nigeria. Purposely, he referred to Chief Simeon Adebo. He referred to Imoukhuede. And we have the Olaopa legacies here. But they are not just for now, because the future is important. I remember what Aristotle said in his seminal work, Greatness of Soul. He said the men, and like the man we're celebrating today, they are ready to cross the ocean, climb the tallest trees, find the strongest battles to put humanity first. Theirs is a tranquil and steady dedication of a lifetime. Their mantra is, my country, when right, keep it right. But when wrong, set it aright. That was the philosophy that guided our father, and that's the philosophy that should guide the future civil service that these students will have. But one of them whispered to me, I think he wasn't concentrating when we played the citation of Baba, and he made a request. Now, are you ready to listen attentively? He said, can you play it again? So let's have the citation of this amazing man that we're here to celebrate one more time.
Chief J.E. Imoukhuede, OBE, was born on the 25th of April 1921 to Chief and Mrs. Eruaga Imoukhuede. He pioneered the setting up of the civil service structure for the Midwest region at its creation in 1963. Prior to that, he was the only non-Yoruba permanent secretary in the Western region and was confirmed as the first secretary to the government and head of the civil service of the Midwest in 1966. J.E. Imoukhuede completed his secondary school education at King's College, Lagos in 1938 and joined the civil service of Nigeria and the Cameroons as a third-class clerk. He quickly rose to the position of chief clerk, later executive officer in just 1 year by 1939. Mr. Imoukhuede graduated from Trinity College, University of Cambridge with a distinction and a BA in history on a full scholarship in 1949. He would complete his master's degree 10 years later in 1959. Between 1949 and 1959, he attended the one-year Devonshire and Overseas Service course, which was a prerequisite for British civil servants, especially those serving in colonial territories. In 1956, Mr. Imoukhuede was the Agent General for the Western region in the United Kingdom. In this office, he was also the Student Affairs Officer for Indigenes of the Western region and was known to exercise the role with the highest sense of fairness, discipline, and responsibility. He served as the Principal Assistant Secretary deployed to the Premier's office in 1959 and in 1960 was conferred with the honor of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. In the same year, Mr. Imoukhuede was appointed Permanent Secretary where he served in the Ministries of Agriculture, Lands and Housing, and Treasury and Establishment. In 1967, during the Biafran War, Mr. Joseph Imoukhuede was abducted by Biafran soldiers along with 3 others: Joseph Adiola, Commissioner of Police; Oluapata, Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture, Midwest; and Samuel Uweni, Officer in Charge, Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, Benin. They were in captivity for 2.5 years, or 888 days, before being released at the end of the war in January 1970. After his release and the lifting of the ban on politics by the military government in 1978, Mr. Imoukhuede became active in partisan politics with the Unity Party of Nigeria, UPN, under the leadership of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Mr. Imoukhuede, along with Chief J.O. Oye, Mr. Emmanuel Obahiagbon, Chief O.N. Rewani, and others worked tirelessly to ensure the election of the first governor of Bendel State, Professor Ambrose Ali. He would later serve as special advisor on civil service matters to the governor. Chief J.E. Imoukhuede retired in 1983 to private life and community development. He was a proud Ora man who hailed from Sabongida Ora, Eviobe, in today's Owan West local government area of Edo State. He was a detribalized Nigerian who spoke Yoruba, Beni, Ora, and Igbo fluently, a man of impeccable character and integrity. Chief J.E. Imoukhuede was married to Mrs. Rebecca Imoukhuede, Ni Oni Okpaku, now of blessed memory, and Mrs. Olubumi Imoukhuede, Ni Olushoga, and was blessed with 8 children and several grandchildren. Today, the 25th of April 2019, which would have been his 98th birthday, marks the inauguration of the Chief J.E. Imoukhuede Annual Memorial Lecture in his honor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also quickly welcome the representative of the chairman of APC, Comrade Adams Oshomole. Honorable Ken Tenseken is here with us. I welcome you. Very quickly, I'd like to constitute the panel, and let me welcome the moderator very quickly. Please welcome Mr. Odie Ofeimum, who will be moderating. I'd like to also welcome to join the panel His Excellency, the Acting Governor of Edo State, Right Honorable Philip Shuaibu. Let me welcome the Director General, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Mr. Babatunde Irukera. And then Dr. Sonny Okwaise, former head of service, Edo State, is joining us here. And finally, let me welcome Dr. Waheed Olagunju. He probably just stepped out. He will be joining us in the panel. Just retired as Executive Director of the Bank of Industry. And I saw him taking very copious notes while Professor Olaupa was speaking. And so once Dr. Waheed Olagunju gets back into the hall, he'll be joining the panel. The panel has 30 minutes. Okay, 30 minutes, sir. I know Chief Imoukhuede, a deal is a deal with him. Over to you, sir. From anywhere, sir.
Your Excellency. Yeah. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'll be doing something wrong if I failed to mention particular individuals by name. I cannot just broaden the canvas and forget the particulars. I mean, first of all, this is the first time I'm shaking hands with the governor of Edo State. And I want to be honest with you, it's a unique experience for me because politics tends to divide people who ought to have conversations. I cannot move beyond this without acknowledging the presence of Chief Deputy. He's an old man I want to call a friend because he has done particular things that move things forward in a way he cannot imagine. But how can I forget to mention Frank Imoukhuede? He's a poet who makes me proud that having people like him in front forced me to rededicate myself to literary excellence. I'm happy you're here, sir. And Mama, it is good that you are here with him because when I saw you, I wondered why you were alone. And I want to thank the Imoukhuede family very specially because in bringing us to a memorialization of the big man of the family who just happens to be the big man of the Midwest and now we can say Edo State, they are helping to build a basis for critical ethics that can move a new generation forward. I don't want to overstretch my time because I have only 30 minutes to share. Every speaker here will do justice to what has just been given to us in 5 minutes. And I hope there will be a timekeeper better than me who would warn us. I knew Imoukhuede, the Baba, when I was 18 years old and a cop reporter for a provincial newspaper, the only newspaper that was in existence after Champion, the Midwest Echo. I reported the rebels' atrocities tribunal. So I knew his story from the most painful and tragic end before I began to know him later in the Unity Party of Nigeria as a public figure to relate to because of his capacity for good. Today, what I am required to do is simply to plead with every member of this panel so that we will deal with the issues that have just been presented to us. I am very happy that the speaker, who happens to be a very good friend of mine, and who happens to be what I would properly call a running mate, because he was going to be private secretary to Chief of Bafemi Awolowo after me, and because he has done a world of intellectual production I contributed to in a manner I would have loved to celebrate today, because you see, to find a giant of intellectual production who is public spirited and would not abandon his post even when he turns his back on certain shenanigans in the business of the state, amounts to an empowerment for people who believe that society must change. I do believe not only that Nigeria will change and that Nigeria is eminently savable, but that we have the men and materials to make it happen. Certain untoward things will be happening around us, but those who make the change possible, it doesn't follow that everybody in society will become part of the angels' squad before change can come. A few people agreeing between themselves on how to make this happen can change the whole picture. And I believe that in spite of all that is going on at the moment, we are already bringing up a generation that will make that change happen. If we all have election, we know that it is important for us to depoliticize the civil service, to undermine politicization as the electoral told us, to build a new corps of civil servants who would help the political class to regain the capacity for will, not in a flippant sense that empowers totally in government services. And by the way, when I use the word totally in government services, I mean that the military introduced an element in public services that we have not quite discussed and done away with. We do need to deal with that. And each and every one of us here ought to take just one of the questions and deal with it. But to do that in 5 minutes is quite a load of work. I've already overspoken, and I must say that I should just start with.
Well,
and please, when you pick up the mic, just introduce yourself.
My name is Wahid Olagunju, former acting manager director of industry. I retired recently as executive director of small and medium enterprises because of the interaction with Imoukhuede. Hearing his antecedents, I'm not surprised. The attitude he brought to work, and I wanted to work on Empower for the jobs of the vice president. Because we were driven majorly by doing good for this country, doing what is in the best interest of this country under divine guidance. Because that's central to what my big brother and one of my motivators told us today. Deferring gratification today in return for eternal reward. He sees it all. Because in the course of my almost 40-year career, from NTA to NIDB to of industry, I interacted with the public service. I was part of the public service at the stage. I interacted with civil servants. I could connect with everything he said. And it's unfortunate that we found ourselves where we are today. Like Mrs. Clinton said when she came to Nigeria, she said Nigeria is where it is today we've not been able to achieve our development aspirations due to failure of leadership and governance over the years. She didn't blame any particular government. So what I'm about to say now is that let us move from 2019 to say 2030, when the Sustainable Development Goals are meant to eradicate poverty, particularly in Africa and in a country like Nigeria. There is no way we can eradicate poverty in Nigeria without implementing the recommendations of Professor Lava. Because we need a strong civil service, a strong public service. We don't need to start blaming each other. We must get it done. My submission is that everything must start from quality of education. Who are the teachers we have in the primary schools, the secondary schools, and in university? Well, that is where the values orientation begins. In school, not only what you are taught, but how the teachers inspire you, how they guide you. Because that's where the discipline starts. That's where morning devotion is not by accident. Before you go to classroom, it's to remind you and to be godly. I know the roles teachers played in forming my character. I know the roles my parents played. And they all work together. My parents and my teachers were on the same page. Not today when parents would have start slapping teachers for disciplining their children. No, that's how we begin to get it wrong. So education is very important. When Tony Blair was contesting, he was asked 3 priorities. He said education 1, education 2, education 3. So unless we get education right, we cannot get anything right. That's why 30 years ago, we were talking of fuel subsidy. Now we are still talking about it. Which means that over the last 30 years, we've engaged in self-deceit in terms of transforming the national economy, diversifying it. Nothing has changed in terms of the structure of the Nigerian economy in the last 30, 40 years. That is what it means. It means all the civil servants, all the politicians, all the governors, all the ministers were not sincere. They didn't have the fear of God in terms of developing this country. So please, for goodness sake, we have a unique opportunity in Nigeria today. 20 years of democracy. Luckily, we've gotten it right in that respect. We have a team of leaders today. Let's stop digression. Don't let us start. Let us face the future. Between now and 2030, what do we need to get right? President Buhari is there today. Vice President Oshibanjo is there today. There are 36 state governors who are there today. Let us all work together. Let us stop. Let's stop all this diversion and digression. Let's have unity of vision, like he said. Let's have fear of God in what we are doing. Because I am sad, very, very sad, that I am not seeing the fear of God in all the leaders we have today. Because when I watch TV, I can interpret, I can analyze, I can know where people are coming from. We are still singing discordant tones. By 2030, this country will not change unless we begin today. And our children and grandchildren will not have jobs. We will not be able to feed ourselves by the time we are 400 million Nigerians. Because our population is projected to double. How do we feed ourselves? We're not serious. Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, we've not been honest with ourselves. We are still importing food, although the import bills have gone down. But let us be more realistic. Feeding ourselves is very, very important. How do we create jobs? We are talking of robbery, we are talking of banditry and everything. It's because nothing is happening. We need to create jobs for people. In these 80s, we didn't have enough manpower to run the Nigerian economy. We depended on West African countries. Industry capitalization was about 80%. We can still go back there. That's why I say unemployment in Nigeria is artificial. Because everybody wants to do white-collar jobs. If we are to explore our natural resource endowments that are very rich, agriculture, for instance, we will not have enough manpower. All the local governments have agricultural endowments. They have soil minerals
that have been identified by studies conducted by FIRO and Raw Materials and Development Council. If I to explore all those things at the primary level of the structure of the economy, process them at the secondary level, then go into services at the tertiary level, we will not have enough jobs, we will not have enough manpower in Nigeria. We need more labor to do those things. So please, for goodness sake, the civil service, we should not laugh at them. It's very, very, very important. When I was in NTA, we could attract Sholo Mole, who made the first class, to come and work there. Chris Anyao, Tony Ede, Frank Olize, Lola Alakija, and co. studied abroad with master's degrees. They could come to Nigeria and join the public service. Today, how many of our children who will turn abroad will come to work in any government ministry? We need to be sincere. All of them cannot go into banks. All of them cannot go into oil companies. Until we develop the civil service in such a way that the best brains are attracted, we cannot make it. I was lucky. I interacted with quality civil servants when I was in the NTA Bank of Industry. I was company secretary for 16 years, out of which for about 14 years there were no boards. Permanent secretaries were in charge. They were chairmen of the shareholders committees, and I interfaced with them. People like Dr. Ramsey Mowo, who is from here, and I learned a lot from them. They inspired me and motivated me. Thank you very much. I have to stop here.
I'll be interjecting as we go along. I want to say that if headhunting was what I came here for, I've already given Olauba a job that I'm sure he will get one of these days. And I want to thank the last speaker because he did the only job that every Nigerian leader should be doing, fighting for education. Until the day we have governors and presidents who would agree to put 25% without looking at any other thing, 25% of the budget on education, we will not have started. Today, we go from 8% down to 3%. Anyway, I want to do something out of the ordinary because the next speaker is not being asked to defend his government. He's being asked to help dream of the future.
Thank you very much, moderator. As an activist, when I was in university, I joined a lot of organizations because then we were under military. We were students under the military government then. And some of us, without our parents knowing, joined civil liberty organization, Nigerian movement, and all the movements because of the books we were introduced to. And we read those books and we became activists on campus. And one of the key things that I learned was, and became our slogan, was first, the military must go. That is number one. Secondly, the main important one that I learned was we have to strengthen institutions. That's the purpose of us, activists, civil society organizations, is to strengthen institutions. For me, I read about what institutions were, theory. And when I was out of school, I became a civil servant. I worked with Nigerian Prison Service, Management Registry. That was my first posting, where we take records of those that are employed. And that is when it dawned on me, those theory that I read and were practicing as an activist on campus, the real institution. And what I saw there really was a system that, when allowed to work, beautiful system. But the truth is was it functioning? And when I also read what it used to look like before the military and what it became during the military, I saw that the military actually destroyed the system. And when we say they destroyed the system, they really, really did. Today, we are struggling to get the civil service back. That is the truth. The civil service of the Imoukhuede, we are struggling to get it back. And for the young ones that are here coming, like Wahid said, education is key. And for us, we have discovered that education cannot be isolated if you don't deal with the basic education. And we are in the era of technology. Technology, it has to be technology-driven. And that is why, for us as a state, without defending Edo State government, for us as a state, I've decided that we have to put our money, the main budget in basic education. And that's why we have what we call Edo Best today, where our students in primary school are introduced to modern way of learning. First, before the student, the teachers. The teachers have to understand what technology is all about. And having agreed that we must understand what technology is all about, our duty as government is to now train them on modern ways of using technology to drive our educational system, and which we came up with Edo Best. As we speak, over 7,000 of our teachers are digital teachers at the primary school level. And maybe during the program or after the program, you can take a look or take a visit to a Magwero secondary school. You'll see what we are doing with our teachers. Another 3,000 teachers and head teachers are undergoing what Edo Best training program, bringing them into technology and in turn, them transferring that knowledge to our young ones. And the target is to make sure that our primary school students from first term must be able to read and write. Primary one students must be able to read and write. And they must also understand what technology is all about. We have a tab that both the head teachers and the students are engaged. Parents are also engaged in this tab. So I agree with you that the starting point is education and education. And until that is done, really, the civil service system will be a problem. Another thing I observe, beyond civil service, how do we grow this country beyond through this? Today, we have the banking sector. And for me, I'm happy they are from the banking sector, but the federal...
This is the network service of the NTA. We'll be joining our outside broadcast crew for another live broadcast. This broadcast will be continued later.
It also has ultrasound scanners of 2D, 3D, 4D capacity. Maiduguri as the Radio Diagnostic Complex is one of its kind, and being in Maiduguri, residents and citizenry in the state will have a sigh of relief as people travel far for such facilities. But it is here in Maiduguri. The MRI of 1.5 Tesla, according to the Commissioner of Health, will in no small measure improve the health of the people in need, and will also help in teaching of students in the University School of Health Technology, School of Nursing in Maiduguri and beyond.
Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say.
Welcome to Abuja, the place that unites Nigeria.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich. are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Lights, camera, action. Pictures are created in accordance with the creative vision of the photographer. The ability of a photographer to express perceptions and emotions in order to convey an impression connotes the art of photography. Most photographic works show aesthetic qualities. Some create an illusion, while some abstract photos may paint a deeper meaning from the ordinary. All this depicts the creativity of this artistry. In the early decades of the 19th century, photography captured more detail and information than the traditional methods of replication, like painting and sculpture. Today, photography still remains a unique art form that demands creative thinking from the photographer. We all love taking pictures, but there's a whole lot that goes into making our pictures look flawless. In this artistry, every detail counts.
I'd usually like to start with one light and then improve my lighting style up to the point when I get the kind of picture I want to shoot. So I'll start with this. This is always called the main light, and I'm going to start the main light on camera right. Okay, fine. So the next thing I need to do now is to position her. I like you to sit down, look towards this light. You can put one foot up, one foot down, make yourself relax. Come to the edge of the stool. Good. Fine. Are you relaxed enough? All right, so just smile, and let's see how this goes. Fantastic. So with every shot I take, I begin to readjust my camera till I achieve what I want to see. So right now, there's too much lighting coming on her face. So I'm going to have to work on my lighting style and try it again. And, well, it looks much better this time around. This is one light setup. And when I took the first light, there was too much light. I had to adjust my settings. And she looks more like this now.
New technological trends in digital photography have opened a new direction in full-spectrum photography, where careful filtering choices across the ultraviolet lead to new artistic visions. This art entails careful staging and lighting of the picture.
I'm going to make it very simple, so I'm going to just add one more light, and then I'm done. This light I'm adding is called a hair light or a rim light. It allows the picture to have a form, and so I can see her in a beautiful place. Beautiful. You see the picture has changed again. You notice there's a rim light now that has created a form. When you look at the first one, it was bare, and the second one has some form of rim between it. And then from here we go into post-production and print. This is the picture, and it comes in two formats. It comes as a JPEG, which is a camera processed option, with the camera.
This is the network service of the NTA. We now join our outside broadcast crew for a live telecast. Please stay tuned.
Hello. Okay. Testing the mic. 1, 2. Hello.
Good afternoon, Nigerians. You're welcome to the President's one-day visit to Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. President Muhammadu Buhari is currently at the show of Borno's palace to pay homage to the show of Borno, Alhaji Abubakar Ibn Umar Garbay El-Kanemi, as tradition demands. The President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is basically in Maiduguri to inaugurate a number of projects constructed by Governor Kashim Shettima's administration. This epoch-making event will not only be a milestone in the political history of Borno, but will certainly remain indelible in the minds of the people of the state, considering the magnitude of the projects that were inaugurated today. The inauguration of series of projects by Mr. President is indeed timely, considering the expiration of the tenure of Borno State Governor Kashim Shettima in no distant time. It might interest you to know that Borno State government has declared this Thursday, the 26th of April 2019, as public holiday so that residents of Maiduguri can give the #1 citizen of the country a rousing welcome.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. May I now invite the Chief Imam of Borno, Imam Leisu Ibrahim, to give us the opening prayers.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Muhammadu Buhari, President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Honorable Kashim Shettima, Executive Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, Governor-elect Borno State, members of the National Assembly here present, members of the Federal Executive Council here present, His Eminence, Dr. Abubakar Umar Ibn Garbay Al-Amin El-Kanemi, CFR, Shehu of Borno, other royal fathers present here, all protocols duly observed. As all of us gathered here already know, we are welcoming Mr. President to Borno State on a working visit. It is therefore my honor and privilege to invite His Eminence to give his opening welcome address.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على النبي الكريم. Your Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, Muhammad Buhari, GCFR. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Borno State, Governor Kashim Shettima. Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor. Your Excellency, the Borno State Governor-elect, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor-elect, members of the Presidential Entourage, members of the National Assembly here present, Honorable Minister Babagana Shauri, Baba Shauri, Honorable Speaker and members of the Borno State House of Assembly, Your Royal Highnesses here present, our respected Borno elders, our former governors, former senators, etc., security chiefs, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with gratitude to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with high sense of respect and humility that I welcome Your Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, and distinguished members of your entourage to Maiduguri and to my palace in particular, which signifies your esteemed recognition and respect to the traditional institution. First of all, let me congratulate Your Excellency for emerging victorious in the just concluded general election. This demonstrated the trust, confidence, and support Nigerians have in your leadership to steer the affairs for another 4 years. We thank the Almighty Allah for giving you this opportunity to consolidate the gains made during your first tenure, which focused on fighting insurgency and general insecurity in some parts of the country, fighting corruption, provision of steady power supply, improvement of road and railway transportation, expanding and promoting agriculture, youth engagement through the end power to make them economically self-reliant, etc. It is my sincere hope and prayer that the next level of your administration will usher in a more developmental aspects. Your Excellency, I cannot conclude my address without expressing our most sincere appreciation and profound gratitude for coming to the aid of Borno and the Northeast region, which witnessed serious destruction by Boko Haram in the first 10 years, where thousands of innocent citizens were killed and several communities displaced. I must also appreciate the federal government assistance to all the displaced persons living in camps and host community through NEMA. With our collective prayers, support, and more commitment, the ongoing military operation along the shores of the Lake Chad and other parts of Borno and the northeast, Boko Haram, will soon be a history, inshallah. I must commend the gallant efforts of the Nigerian Armed Forces and pray for the soul of those who paid the supreme price in the course of duty. May their gentle soul rest in eternal peace. On our part, we shall continue to pray for their success and provide them with update on any perceived security threats. On the final note, I will not end my address without commending and appreciating His Excellency Governor Kashim Shettima and now Senator-elect Borno Central, who despite the security challenges defy all odds and remain with us during our trying period. Not only that, he embarked on massive reconstruction and rehabilitation of schools, hospitals, and other public utilities destroyed by Boko Haram in the state. Indeed, there was also intensive industrialization drive and agricultural program, which would also go a long way to give hope to orphan children and traumatized community in the long run. I believe posterity will judge him as one of the best governors of Borno State. In conclusion, I once again welcome you, Mr. President, and wish you and members of your entourage safe journey to your next destination. Thank you, Your Excellency.
It's now my singular honor to invite the Executive Governor of Borno State, Honorable Kashim Shettima, to make his remarks.
Your Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, Your Excellency, the Borno State Deputy Governor, Your Excellency, the Governor-elect, Statesman Ambassador Babagana Kingibe, members of the Executive Council, of the Borno State Executive Council, fathers, our former governors, Borno elders, English ladies, praise be to Allah who created writing as a means of communication between distant men, an interpreter between neighbors, a vehicle of greeting between friends, a source of delight among the ulama and of sorrow among the unlettered. Barely had it not been for it, communication will have ceased and transactions will have become impossible. That was Sultan Osman bin Idris of Borno in his communication with Sultan Barkuk of Egypt in 1381. Your Excellency, I want to warmly, on behalf of the people of Borno State, welcome you to this great citadel of learning, to this caliphate compared to the Ottomans and the Saudi Morocco, one of the oldest civilizations known to humanity. And Your Excellency, we have had our fair share of instability and even wars in our checkered history. This includes the sacking of Birmingham by jihadis in 1808, the invasion of Rabi in 1892, and the Maitasini of the 1980s. In spite of the bestiality, the near insanity, the lunacy of those epochs, none could be compared to the madness that engulfed this part of the world in the past 10 years. A reign of terror was unleashed, helpless citizenry, by the demented monsters called Boko Haram. Our people were facing real execution until Allah, in His infinite mercy, brought about administration in this country. The people of Borno, and indeed the Northeast, are eternally indebted to you for the empathy, support you have rendered to our people. And I'm born with perfect ease without any fear
of equivocation or contradiction that never in the history of this country have we had a leader who has a passion and love for the people of Borno greater than President Muhammadu Buhari. So for us as a people, the only thing we can say is Jazakallah khairan. We will not dissipate your useful time and energy by regaling you with our needs. We are here fundamentally to thank you for your support. Your Excellency, the past 10 years were very tough years for the people of Borno. And beneath the mayhem of Boko Haram, underneath the nihilism lies the real cause, which is extreme poverty, destitution, and lack of access to education. There has been an incestuous relationship between poverty, climate change, and lack of access to education. Along that line, in the past 8 years, we are vigorously pursuing a grassroots socio-economic empowerment program with agriculture as a centerpiece. Believe me, with investments in agriculture, a Borno man has no business being poor. And the whole mantra is on increase in yield. Your Excellency, we have invested heavily in modern agricultural investments. And inshallah, our investments in the coming years and months. As Bibi Angre said, you don't wait for the storm to be over. You learn to dance in the rains. We have made modest efforts, which you commissioned our industrial complex along Kano Road. And as Malala Yousafzai said, you kill a terrorist with a gun. You kill terrorism with education. I'm passionate about education. We are passionate about Western education because education is neither Western nor Eastern. Education is all about humanity. And we are building mega schools across the state. Some were commissioned by Your Excellency about a year ago. We have about 40 of them and 10 are in the pipeline. Inshallah, in the coming years, our investments will yield dividends. And inshallah, in Professor Babagana Umara Zulum, inshallah, we have an incoming governor that will surpass all our expectations. He's a professor of irrigation engineering. And Your Excellency, it might interest you to know that he's also a hafiz of the Holy Quran. So, so on that note, I want to once again thank you, sir. We don't have any demands, sir, apart from saying a big thank you. But Borno is the only state, Your Excellency, without a federal polytechnic and a federal college of education. We will appreciate if the federal government can take over Ramat Polytechnic and one of our colleges of education in the state. Beyond that, honestly, we are grateful to you. You have empowered our people. You have placed people of Borno in very high pedestal. And I think it's not proper for us to start making outrageous demands from you. You have done a lot for us. The presidential initiative in the Northeast, the Northeast Development Commission that came into being recently, were all your initiatives aimed at addressing the needs of the people of the Northeast. Your Excellency, we are most grateful. Thank you very much.
May I now invite His Excellency Governor Kashim Shettima to invite Mr. President to respond.
Your Excellency, it's my singular honor and privilege to cherish forever to invite you to deliver your remarks. Thank you. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Borno State,
members of the National Assembly that are here, the former governors, the honorable ministers present here, Your Eminence, the Sheikh of Borno, and Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished government officials. I am pleased to be here in Maiduguri for a state visit. I sincerely appreciate the good people of Borno State. I commend you for your loyalty and support at all times, given the enormous challenges subjected by the Boko Haram insurgency. Since I arrived in Maiduguri today, I have seen and commissioned different projects. I am highly impressed by Governor Shitima's very unique approach towards resuscitating the educational sector, particularly at primary level. As appointed by the governor, it is essential to give priority attention to primary school level in order to lay a solid and firm foundation towards ensuring quality and formidable education at the tertiary level in line with international best practices. Your Excellencies and gentlemen, Borno State focusing on education is very imperative due to the peculiar security challenges faced by Boko Haram, whose ideology is dramatically opposed to Western education. The insurgents are malicious and girl-child education. They abducted schoolgirls at government secondary schools, Chibok and Dapchi in Yobe State. Unfortunately, some of these abducted girls are still being held captive. However, as I have always said, we will not give up on them. As president, as a Nigerian, and as a parent, I share the agony of every Nigerian whose loved ones are in the hands of abductors. Therefore, government will do the needful to successfully reunite these girls with their families. The federal government has since 2015 been involved with resident and foreign stakeholders in evaluating the impact of Boko Haram attacks across the Northeast. Significantly, we are putting in efforts to end insurgency in the region. I am pleased that the Borno State government has taken advantage of the peace we have generated to achieve so much in housing, roads, agriculture, industry, and most significantly, in education. I am even more pleased that some of the newly built mega schools will be exclusive to girl-child education. This is a wise and definitive response to the Boko Haram ideology. May I therefore assure you that the federal government will continue to support basic education in different ways. Through fiscal discipline, we shall remain law-abiding in the prompt distribution of resources to all levels. Thank you. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I am constrained to digress from my text because of the quality addressed by His Eminence. I'm very pleased he has been up to date in the move the government has made to make sure that we have identified with the problems which was faced by the Northeast, the problem mostly of insecurity. I'm very impressed with His Excellency's the historical antecedents. I have awarded him Professor of History from today. I think it is very important that he has given us the impetus that his base is so solid historically. And I have regretted telling you that I engaged one of the intellectuals from here to tell me, why didn't we, as colored people, and especially from Borno, go to the moon first? Because you made a contact with Middle East and North Africa, and through the technology, and you have a continuous and the longest empire in the developing countries. Why didn't we go to the moon before the Western world went there? I think I will challenge him to solve that problem. Thank you very much.
Chief Imam, closing prayers.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك دعوهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحياتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعوهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
That was a remark by President Muhammadu Buhari on his one-day walking visit to Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. The number one citizen was emphatic that his administration will continue to carry the people of the state along, considering their unconditional love for him, which he explained cannot be easily quantified. He also maintained that priority will be accorded to the state, especially in the area of education, in view of the devastation done to the state by Boko Haram insurgents. We have, however, come to the end of this auspicious occasion, which was transmitted to you live from the show of Borno's Palace in Maiduguri. On behalf of the outside broadcast crew, I am Awakar Mohammed Musa, inviting you to enjoy other programs on the largest television network in Africa, the NTA.